Well, a hearty shalom to you, Jeffrey Seif here. I am so pleased, as I say this all the time, I'm pleased that you want to take a look at the book that is the Bible. I know you're interested in the Tree of Life version, and thank you for that. I'm glad you're interested in the Bible in any version, and God bless you for that. We here work our way through the Bible the way Jews do, and every week I have an opportunity to alight upon something from the week's reading. Parashat Re'eh comes from a word to see, and the Israelites are beckoned with a reminder to adhere to the commandments promulgated in the Mosaic economy. In chapter 11, verse 1, I am setting before you blessing and cursing. Choose blessing. And blessing, he goes on to say in 27, if you listen to the mitzvot of Adonai your God that I am commanding you today. That is, there's a blessing inherent in following the commandment. This is what the good Lord is telling these people. These people, by the way, this is the second generation of Hebrews. The lion's share of the first generation were non-compliant, with the net result they died in the wilderness. The new generation now is beckoned to be compliant with the commands that I give you in order that they can have success in the life that's ahead of them. Now, we'll look at this and we'll read it, well, if we say Yeshua instead of Jesus, if we call the leader a rabbi instead of a reverend, if we do church on Saturday instead of Sunday, if we do the Jesus thing in the Jewish way, then that's keeping the commandments, that's the Jewish stuff, and there's blessings that abide by virtue of so doing, because we read here in the text, the good Lord says that if we keep his commandments, if we do it the Jewish way, which is the way that we hear that, then it's going to be well. Listen, I so much appreciate Messianic Jewish experience and Jewish experience in general, Messianic experience in particular, and I superintend a congregation where that is very, very pronounced. When he speaks here of the blessings associated with keeping the commandments, it's commandments associated with, you just read a few verses down, commandments when living in the land. And some of these commandments are, he says, when you get to Jerusalem, when you get to the place that the Lord your God will show you, there you'll build your tabernacle, there you'll bring your tithes, there you'll make these annual pilgrimages. Similarly, it's an agrarian culture. You're working the land and you should let it rest, and every seventh year is a rest year. The commandments here deal with issues associated with the new economy. The first interpretation of any passage belongs to the original hearers of it, and when we hear in the scripture the exhortation to follow the mitzvot, the commandments, the ordinances, we naturally refract that through a prism which entails our understanding of current Jewish experience. And there's a way to look at current applications, but before we ever get to the current, we have to get to yesterday, and we want to hear the text the way the first readers of it did. And here he's not saying, listen, go to church on Saturday instead of Sunday, call him a rabbi instead of a reverend. And here's the way we do church. Here's the way we do the Christian religion. That what's at play here in the commandments and the ordinances is a whole way of living that's land-based. It's centered in Jerusalem. There's an inextricable relationship between being religious and being in Israel. There's a certain people that's destined to a certain place, and there's a way life is to be lived out there. And these people are told in no uncertain terms what they're to do when they get there. In the way they manage their land, that is, the way they manage their agrarian lifestyle, the way they manage their diets. There's dietary stuff coming into play in this week's reading, the kind of food you can and can't eat. There's no FDA back then. And he says, listen, if you're good to go with this stuff, it's going to be good with you. And it is going to be good because the diet's much healthier. And if you regulate the land in such a way where you give it a rest, your food product is going to be much better. At the end of the day, you're not just going to deplete the minerals out of the real estate. In different ways, to be sure, there's blessings with compliance with the mitzvot. We ask the question today, what can we gather from this? what are the implications for our own life and experience? You know, how can we go back and what do we do with this? And there's a raging debate, by the way, when you hear in the text, follow these commandments and it'll be well with you. Certain individuals think that in order to be authentically Christian, what we have to do is be dutifully Jewish. And that means when individuals hear Yeshua, Jesus saying, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments, that just translates back into keeping the 613 commandments. He doesn't really say keep the commandments. He says keep my commandments. Yeshua does, and he goes on to talk about the application, the ethical application and implications of the Torah, to love others, to be kindly disposed to the poor, to the disenfranchised, to remain in fellowship, etc. That there's some confusion about that. In the Jewish world, Jews, never mind Jewish believers in Jesus like myself, Jews do not believe that individuals of non-Jewish extract must needs comply with what's promulgated in the Mosaic economy. There's an understanding that this is a commandment that's given to a people, and these are commandments that are land-based in essence and substance, and the ethical principles apply to everyone, but the literal mandate to adhere doesn't. Now that is the position of Jewry the world over, with no exceptions. Now within the Jewish believing in Jesus world, within the mainstream, similarly parroting the conventional perspective of our Jewish friends, the belief is that it is not incumbent upon individuals of non-Jewish extract to adhere to the Mosaic economy, but rather to derive the principles from them that apply to life, living, and loving. And the understanding is that's the genius of Jesus on the issue, who says, I don't come to abolish, but to fulfill. And here's the way you fulfill it. That you've heard it said, don't commit adultery, but I'm telling you, don't look at a woman lustfully. That we're taking the commandments to another level. It's the ethics, it's the moral. And individuals with a spirit-filled life can begin to walk that stuff out. That's the understanding. Inasmuch as the conventional Jewish world does not understand that individuals of non-Jewish extract need to adhere to the Mosaic economy to be blessed. Similarly, within the Jewish believing in Jesus world, that same perspective abides. Now, in the fringes and cults, there are different variant religions and people that insist you must do this. It's not my perspective. It's not our perspective. Now, there are some individuals, by the way, and I would imagine the kind of person that would follow me, that would want to tune in to cue into what I'm all about, what I want to say from the TLV. That kind of person is much more dutifully concerned about the commandments because of a call of God on the life for things Jewish. Within the Jewish believing in Jesus world and within the Jewish world on the whole, there are individuals of the nations who have a love and a heart and a calling, by all means. The point to make clear is there's no mandate that blessings are not to be garnered by simply embracing various Torah commandments. We have to look at these commandments and work on how they apply to modernity, because Jews don't just live in Israel. Here, the commandments this week talk about pilgrim festivals 3 times a year to Jerusalem. It's not a synagogue-based Jewish religious system, because the synagogue doesn't exist. It's not a rabbi-led Jewish system when Moses speaks here. Because it's a priest-led system. There are no rabbis. They're hundreds of years removed. And what we want to do is go back to the original story and then apply it. Well, thank you so much for taking a look at the book with me, Jeffrey Seif here. And I am pleased to take a look with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for caring about the Tree of Life, for this movement of Jewish scholars that have tendered a translation. And I'm so glad you love it, and I'm so glad to represent it. Thank you for caring about what I have to say on it. See you next week. Jeffrey Seif here. Same time, same station. Next time. God bless.